We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Well, Benedict, congratulations on the film. It's a really tense and challenging piece of work. And of course, it's an adaptation of the play Blackbird, which of course you directed back in 2005. What made you want to return to it?
I was interested in how the kind of raw emotional problem between the two characters and the kind of profound moral problem and the questions that they're working through might translate into film, and how the camera might offer a special intimacy on that relationship. But I was also interested in how the film might leave the closed room of the play and so how it might open up a question of memory and time. The film and the play is about two people who see each other again after 15 years, who are trying to still unpack and deal with the events that happened to them 15 years ago and how their lives were altered by that. So I was really interested in this question of how memory exists, how memory interrupts the present, and how the past lives on in the present. And I think that film is the ultimate place to explore that. Film, yeah.
And this is your first feature film as well, because mainly you've concentrated on theatre and on opera. I wondered what made you want to make the move.
I'd always wanted to make a film. I've always been my theatre's been deeply influenced by filmmaking. I think my theatre Bergman or Antonioni or Kubrick have always influenced me in the theatre and in me wanting to kind of pursue with actors sort of truth on the stage and find contemporary ways of doing that. And in a way, I was always kind of looking for and waiting for the project that would blow a hole in my theatre schedule, and Blackbird was that, and now I've got the bargain. Want to keep doing it.
And that's it, really.
I'll keep returning to theatre. Theatre will always be my home, and theatre's like a kind of, theatre's such a great place to sort of go back to, and it's such a luxury to be in a rehearsal room for weeks and explore stuff with actors, and I'm never going to stop doing that, but I want to make more movies.
So did you feel that moving the play to the big screen would allow you to explore ideas that you weren't able to in the theatre?
Absolutely. This question of time, I think, in particular, and I think in the theatre it works like a verbal boxing match. It's largely rhetorical. We're sort of asked to play judge and jury, weighing up their words is what they said was true. I think in the film, it's the image, what you see, counts for a lot more than what is said. So it was a chance to explore silence in a different way, a chance to explore what a gaze works, a tiny flickering of an eye or a quivering of a lip might mean in a way that the theatre can't, but also to explore through the use of flashbacks and through the use of jumping time, what the emotional experience of time and memory.
So you've already referred to the fact that you've sort of opened up that stage setting in that you've got different settings, you've got different time frames as well. So how does that affect the way that you're telling the story?
I wanted to honour and invite the audience into the same claustrophobic feeling that the play has in the theatre. There's a very exclusive relationship between the two characters, both in the past and in the present. It exists in a kind of bubble. Cuts off the rest of the world. It's a strange, destructive, exclusive, damaged relationship. So I had to find ways to invite the audience into that space. If you're only in that space in the film, it's too much. You need to be let out occasionally. Riz's character, Scott, lets us out. He's the real world, the normal world, coming back into that. So it gives us a breath of fresh air, another perspective on it. But my way of wanting to do that in the film was to think of the whole film in the past and the present as a labyrinth that we were following Una through. We start following her along the side of the house as a girl, and then we follow Rooney through the club, back to her mother's house, and on her pursuit of Ray, and then through the rooms of that warehouse. So in going through this labyrinth, she's in pursuit of her past and the questions that are unresolved, facing down her monsters. So I think that was a way of getting it out of the room of the theatre. Okay.
And of course you're tackling a very controversial subject, a very taboo subject, just as much a taboo now as it was when the play was first made. And there's a huge amount of moral ambiguity in there as well. Are you actually looking to break down that taboo?
Yes, I think that the moral ambiguity comes from the fact that Una and other survivors are torn apart by a kind of ambiguity. For me, legally the question is very black and white and needs to be very black and white. But emotionally, it's not always black and white. Desire is mixed up with guilt, abuse and love are mixed up. And Una is trying to untangle those questions and trying to find those answers. So we're invited into that grey area that she's in a very deep and profound and uncomfortable way. And the question of whether he is a monster or whether he was a good man, the same thing. So it's just, in a way, it sets our moral compasses spinning the same way hers have been. And I hope that it continues, that this taboo subject, which is finally starting to be talked about. I think the play was started that in the mid-2000s, a general shift in the world, in the media, in storytelling, where we're actually starting to tell these stories that were taboo, and that's really important. The stories are the way that we start to understand crime and to understand the human cost of the relationships, and actually just be able to talk about them, not keep things hidden. I think it's really important that this film is part of that conversation, but that it provokes that conversation as well.
So it's comparatively easy for us to sympathise with Una herself in the way that she's trying to discover her past, that she feels she's lost. But how much do you want us to sympathise with Ray?
It keeps it on a knife edge. It's the same as it's not identical, but it's similar to her experience. If we didn't identify with him, if he was only demonized, if he was only a monster, or if we were like the other guys in prison who we do want to smear shit on his face maybe, or be like her father who wanted to kill him. Those responses are provoked in us and understandable. But the film invites us, like her, to go beyond those first experiences and into an uncomfortable space where love and abuse have been mixed up. And in order to do that, we have to be constantly questioned. We have to connect with him. And Ben, the writing, but in Ben playing it, invites us to go into his dark spaces, but also invites us to be considering his question or his demand on her. He says, I have the right to a new life. I'm allowed to have a right to a new life. And for us to also weigh up that question of redemption as well. But it's very important that he's not demonized and pushed away, and that it's not black and white, or it would only be a revenge tale. And I think that it's more emotionally uncomfortable and tender, and that honors in an uncomfortable way the torn state of the characters.
Obvious question, I guess, but why did you choose Rooney Mara and Ben Mendelsohn?
Rooney was the very first actress I thought about when I knew I was going to make a film with Blackbird. She has fierce intelligence. She has, in every role I've seen her do in profoundly different ways, she puts herself on the line. She's very brave. She has a beguiling beauty, a kind of mystery that you want to understand. And then it turned out she loved the play. She'd seen it, she loved it, so it just kind of went on from there. Ben initially, like I was thinking about some older guys, because in the play he's older, he's 55, but as soon as we knew we were opening up the past, I just went, Ben. Ben could do this. I've worked with Ben in the theatre. I think he's one of the great actors of his generation. I think he's one of the bravest actors out there. But also for this material, what's so important is he's unafraid and capable of, he's unafraid of, and he's able to shine light into the very dark spaces of this character. And he does so with a glint in his eye, with great humour, but with also a kind of, he invites us into this man's brain. And that's the uncomfortable thing, but that's why we go to see films or go to see great theatre, is to get drawn to people, sometimes who would maybe repel us, sure, but to get closer to them. It's a safe space for us to do that. Okay. Yeah, they're extraordinary actors. I'm so blessed.
Final question. Is this a film about love, or is it about abuse? That's
what the film is about. The question is exactly what the film draws us into.
And it's for us to make up our own minds?
It's for people to argue about, or to maybe come to the my conclusion is it's both those things smashed and mixed together, and she's trying to extricate them. It's a film about abuse. There's no question about that, and lives destroyed by that abuse. But whether it was love, that's up to people to work out if that existed in there. But it's about what happens when those things become mixed up.
Benedict, thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.